He doesn't exist. He's all in your head. Only Brenda Swan could say that being a witness to an accident was a huge stroke of luck. She dreamed of becoming a reporter and was always eager to get a shot of even the most remotely interesting event. That morning, Brenda pushed through a crowd of onlookers and managed to take a short video of the aftermath of a car that had crashed into a train. There was a pile of twisted metal, smoke, screaming. It was so annoying that she hadn't been able to film it all from the beginning. In the evening, the garbage men came to collect the trash. Brenda was trying to get rid of as much stuff as she could before renovating her house. Finally, she got to the last dusty box in the attic. This new find pleased her. Inside the box, she discovered a pile of long-forgotten VHS tape cassettes. She picked one out at random, took out an old VCR from the same box, and went downstairs. The first tape was less than 5 minutes long. It was a video of a family barbecue in the backyard. Very nostalgic footage. Her grandma was bringing out the lemonade, her dad was serving grilled sausages onto the plates, and a car was parked outside the house in the background. Brenda narrowed her eyes and pressed the pause button. It was a large old hearse. She couldn't make out the driver, only a pale silhouette and eyes that looked straight into the camera lens. Brenda suddenly felt uneasy. The second tape was of some sort of celebration at the park. It was a bright day. The children were laughing while her young parents looked on. Brenda smiled. It was worth looking back at these tapes every once in a while. Suddenly, the same hearse appeared in the video. It all seemed wrong somehow. The unsettling appearance of the dark hearse didn't fit in with that serene day. And nobody, absolutely nobody noticed it. The driver's side door opened. A pale man wearing a black suit came out. He stood by the car and looked right at the camera. Brenda pressed rewind. The video morphed and sped up, but the man stayed in the same place, motionless. Brenda changed the tape, just to make sure that the appearance of that hearse and the strange man were just coincidences. The tape showed her 11th birthday party. She remembered that party well. She remembered all the gifts she had gotten that day, and how her mom had filmed her playing on that old swing. But she definitely didn't remember the bald, pale man that stood behind the swings, holding a bunch of balloons. Because he hadn't been there that day. He hadn't even been on the tape until now. Where did he come from? What the hell is going on here? Brenda pulled out another tape and froze. It was clear that with every new tape, the man was becoming clearer and clearer, as if he was coming closer to her. One more tape, and he would crawl out of the TV. Brenda pulled the tape out of the VCR and gathered all the tapes into a pile. She needed answers, so went out to find them at the VCR shop at the end of the street. "We're about to close," said a man from behind the counter. "Please." Brenda glanced at the man's name tag. "Hank, I need to know if these tapes have been edited." Brenda spilled the tapes onto the table and looked at the man with such frightened expression that he couldn't turn her away. Brenda haltingly told him about the creepy man who had never appeared in the tapes up until now. Hank unenthusiastically turned the tapes over in his hand and then placed them in a VCR one by one. Brenda was ready to point and yell, "Look, that's him!" But, to her surprise, all the recordings were completely normal. They didn't show anyone that couldn't have been there. Hank explained that this sort of thing happens sometimes. Old VCRs can sometimes scratch the tapes, which could lead to shadows or images appearing in the recordings. Brenda was completely satisfied by that explanation. At night, Brenda heard a monotonous sound, almost like interference in a TV with bad signal. She reluctantly got out from under her blanket and looked around her bedroom. Everyone looked normal, except for the window. The curtains were moving slightly, letting a dim blue light into the room. Brenda slowly approached the window and pulled back the curtains. The window had turned into a TV screen, emitting that monotonous sound of interference. The noise suddenly became shrill. Brenda covered her ears. She screamed and woke up. It had just been a dream, but that maddening sound was real. It was coming from downstairs, from the living room. Brenda's drowsiness immediately leapt as soon as she saw that the TV had been switched on in the living room. It was emanating a cold blue light that enveloped the entire room, making the furniture look eerie and out of place. Brenda pointed the remote at the TV and almost fainted. She saw herself as a child on the TV screen, sitting alone on the swings in the middle of the night. Then, pale, white hands appeared from the darkness and rested on the child's shoulders. Brenda panicked and started pressing on all the remote buttons, but it was useless. The VCR wasn't even plugged in. So Brenda threw her bathrobe at the TV and locked herself in her room. She stayed there until morning, not daring to close her eyes. In the morning, the TV had been switched off, but what Brenda had seen that night didn't feel any less real. So Brenda called Hank's shop and told him everything that had happened. "This isn't just scratches on the damn tapes. Something is really happening here," she yelled into her phone. Hank replied with a sleepy voice that if she was afraid of some man from a recording, she should just destroy the tapes. Brenda was surprised that she hadn't come up with that herself. She collected all the tapes she had watched into a box and then took them outside. She got into her car and ran over the recordings of her childhood memories without a moment's hesitation. Brenda spent the whole evening glancing anxiously at the black TV screen. Neither the scary images or the white noise appeared. Brenda breathed out a sigh of relief and headed to her room. When, suddenly, she heard something more terrifying than the white interference noises. She heard a car pull up onto her lawn. The driver switched off the engine, and soon everything was engulfed in silence. Brenda was too afraid to even breathe. She stood motionless as the car headlights shone through the window and almost burned her skin. She even thought she could feel pain from touching the lights and smell the unpleasant scent of burning flesh. When the driver turned off the headlights, Brenda finally gathered up the courage to look outside. A chill ran down her spine. There was nothing there. Only the tire tracks on the street and her lawn showed that someone had actually driven up to her house. Before turning away from the window, Brenda noticed a child's figure on her swings. The old swings should have been creaking loudly, but the girl swayed back and forth in complete silence. As soon as Brenda went out onto her porch, the girl on the swings froze, hovering above the ground at an awkward angle. It was as if someone had paused the video of the scene. Brenda backed away towards the door. This was all becoming too weird for her. Then she saw the thing that she had been most afraid to see, an old hearse, emerge from the nighttime fog onto the street. It stopped in front of Brenda's house. The doors swung open to reveal a pair of legs in black pants. Brenda ran into the house in terror. Both the girl on the swing and the hearse had disappeared, but the long shadows under the window made Brenda feel that she wasn't alone. Brenda spent the next day almost in a delirium, only thinking about how to get rid of her nightmarish visions. A solution appeared when someone knocked on the door. Hank, the man from the VCR shop, stood at the doorway. "I was just passing by," he laughed, "and I wanted to know if my advice was helpful." Brenda shook her head with tears in her eyes. "No, everything became worse. It's almost like he's entered the real world. Like I somehow released him." Brenda asked Hank to stay until nightfall so that he could see the hearse and the driver himself. "Well, sure, I guess," he said, a little confused. The evening was spent chatting and watching movies. For a moment, Brenda even managed to forget her fear. Once night fell, there was a blackout. Brenda said that there was a generator in the basement and asked Hank to go with her. Lighting their way with their phones, they headed downstairs. Hank stood on the stairs while Brenda fumbled around for the generator switch. Her phone suddenly vibrated in her hand. She had gotten a new message. "Hi, I just wanted to know if my advice was helpful. I'll drop by tomorrow." Brenda felt the blood drain from her face when she saw that the text was from Hank. Then, who was standing behind her right now? Brenda slowly turned around and shone her phone towards the stairs. Hank was wearing a strange smile. His eyes didn't blink. Suddenly, something started dripping down his face. Contact lenses, fake teeth, and a wig fell down to the ground. A bald man with eerily blue skin, black lips, and white eyes stood in front of her. He smiled, exposing his sharp teeth, and jumped towards Brenda. Brenda screamed and pushed the man away with all her strength. She felt something slimy and disgusting on her hands, as if she had pushed right through his skin and into his body. Brenda ran up the stairs and out onto the street. Her feet led her to her neighbor's house. She could see a light through their window, and her neighbor soon appeared in front of the door. "Help! He's chasing me!" Brenda cried out. "Call!" Brenda trailed off when she noticed pale hands clasped around her neighbor's shoulders. The creepy bald head appeared from behind her neighbor. He gave a crazed smile and licked his teeth. Brenda staggered back and almost fell over. Her neighbor didn't see him. No one could see him except for her. Brenda realized that she had done something much worse than bring that creature into the real world. She had let him into her mind. Brenda rushed back towards her house. Maybe if she destroys all the tapes in the attic, they'll finally leave her alone? Glancing around like an animal being hunted, Brenda reached the attic. The box was lying in the furthest corner, but before Brenda could reach it, the box started shaking. Long, white fingers reached out from inside the box. Then a pair of hands. 2 pairs, 3, 4, more and more, when finally a bald, pale head followed. Her legs went limp and Brenda fell to the floor. She crawled towards the wall, unable to take her eyes off the creature, slowly rising from the box, and waited for the inevitable. That's when she had one more idea. She had to send the creature back to where it came from. She got out her phone with sweaty hands and started filming, pointing the camera first at herself. "My name is Brenda Swan," she said, haltingly. "If you are watching this, you'll know that I didn't manage to escape. But whatever happens to me, he's the one who did it." On those words, Brenda turned her phone to capture the disgusting, bald creature that had emerged from the box. The creature curled up and screwed his eyes shut like a vampire in sunlight. Black spots started appearing all over its body, burning its skin. Brenda's hand shook, but she didn't end the video until the creature had dissolved completely. And only then did Brenda's exhaustion from the last few sleepless nights overtake her. She closed her eyes and fell into a deep sleep. she was awoken by a bright flash of light and a rumbling sound. After waking up so suddenly, all her memories of the previous nights were gone. Brenda opened her eyes and looked around. She was on a train track. A black hearse was standing on the tracks. The train whistle went off. There was an impact. Brakes screeched. A pile of twisted metal. And Brenda recognized the same scene that she had recorded only a few days ago. She tried to run away, but after blacking out, another flash of light appeared, and it all repeated, again and again. She couldn't see that bald creature any longer, but she knew that it was watching her, playing her over and over again in a video.